artists, now that we have a vision for where this project might be going, it's time to shift our attention now to the canvas bag. I have some tools to offer you that may help this step in our process go smoothly. The first idea is to use a bit of masking tape to protect the zipper on your bag. We don't want to get paint on those teeth and make it so that the bag won't actually zip. Now, this tape can also function as a clean line that almost creates a frame. If you want your bag to have a nice clean edge, you can consider using that tape, even going all the way around and creating a clean line that later you can remove, and it looks very nice and neat. Another tool that I have available to you is simply your pencil. If you are concerned about just jumping into the paint, you can lightly use your pencil to sketch the basic design on here. And that's something that I think I'll be doing, at least on portions of this. And along with that, you could use, of course, a ruler and a compass to get straight lines or clean geometric shapes like a circle. In addition to that, at least at school, I have a collection of stencils. These might serve you in helping you to get really neat looking geometric shapes. If you're doing an organic shape, kind of a blobby shape, or maybe this is kind of wavy curve, I don't need to have the edges quite as clean as I might want to if I'm using a shape like a triangle. So one possibility that I found on mine, because of this bottom design, I wanted to do repeated rectangles. I happened to find a couple stencils that had repeated rectangles or squares. So that's something that I might consider on mine. Now, I also need to think about layering. So when I paint, for example, this design, I need to work on the rectangles first, and then after it dries, add the rainbow kind of swirly, curvy line on top. So you'll need to think about what parts need to be done first. Anything that's in the background is going to be done before you do something in the middle ground and before you do something in the foreground. So you're kind of moving back to front. So I'm going to experiment with this and I'll show you my process. Here's how the first layer of repeated squares turned out. I'm actually really pleased with it. I think that method happened to be a lot easier for me than hand painting each of the rectangles. And so I'm glad that I made that little adaptation. Now I need for this to dry before I attempt to add that kind of rainbow wave on top of it. So there's a couple of things I'd like you to do while your first layer is drying. The first thing is to clean off your stencil. If you do it while the paint is freshly painted on there, it actually comes off pretty easy, and that way the next person is not contaminated. Their art isn't contaminated by your colors. The other thing that you can do is while you're waiting, go ahead and just practice the next part. See, which brushes work. If there's a particular technique that is going to be helpful for you before you commit yourself on the fabric. So I'm going to do that now. After practicing, I discovered a couple things. One, my paintbrush had some little hairs sticking out, so I had to get a fresh brush. I also noticed that sometimes it was a little bit easier for me to have water on the brush. It went a little bit more smoothly. And I also realized doing my wave that I wanted some kind of guide. So I don't know if you can tell, but I've lightly penciled in just kind of a guiding line for my curves. So I'm going to work on this next part of doing the rainbow and just seeing how that goes. Artists, here's where I'm at in the process, and I'm making some different realizations and kind of adapting my process as I go. So one of the things I'm realizing is that the lighter colors don't completely block the darker layers underneath, and so I think I'm going to need a second layer to my rainbow colors so that they really sharply contrast with the black squares. So I'm going to need to spend some extra time there and then do the same thing on my bottom wave. So if that's the case, I've decided that maybe I'm just going to concentrate on this one side, even though I'd like to do a back side. With my particular design, I just think my craftsmanship will be higher quality if I just focus here. So as you're working, you may make discoveries as well and need to adapt your process as you go. Adding a second layer did a better job of blocking the appearance of the black squares under the rainbow. So I am happy that I did that. This was really time consuming, so I definitely think if I were to do both sides, that I would need to have a much simpler design. While this dries, I am going to be considering if I would like to do the second rainbow on here or if it'll actually make it too busy, because I still would like to do some stitching for emphasis. So while I'm thinking about this, go ahead and get started on your painting.